a law enforcement knock. You look through the window and you see a badge. Your heart starts racing. Oh my goodness. They're not arresting you. They're not yelling. They just say, we need to talk. And what do you do next? What you do next can determine whether you stay protected or accidentally give the state a case against you. Today, I'm going to explain what the Texas Penal Code allows, what it does not allow, and exactly how to handle that knock without making things worse. I'm Ruben Restrepo. I'm a Texas criminal defense attorney. I've handled hundreds of cases, and they didn't start with, not all of them started with handcuffs. They started with just a conversation at the front door. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you 3 of the biggest mistakes people make when law enforcement shows up, and the simple framework that protects you calmly and legally. Okay? I want you to stay until the end, because the most dangerous mistake happens after people think they've done the right thing. Okay, now before we continue, I want you to subscribe to this channel. Let me see here. I got a little thing that says that, I think, right? Okay, so let's see here. Yes, like and subscribe. All right. Yeah, I want you to subscribe to this channel because I want you to break down Texas criminal law. I'm going to break it down for you in plain English, okay? Especially to prevent things from spiraling out of control. All right, here's the first thing you need to understand. Your home, your house, right, is your strongest legal protection. Under Texas law, the police cannot enter your home unless they have a valid warrant or a true emergency. But there's a problem. That protection disappears the moment that you say, I give consent. And consent does not have to sound that obvious. Okay? All right. Let's talk about mistake number 1. Opening the door just to be polite. I see this all the time. Someone opens the door because they don't want to look guilty, right? An officer, maybe they smell something, they see something, and suddenly it's no longer a conversation, it's an investigation. Okay? You are allowed to speak to police without opening the door, right? Opening the door expands their legal access, right? A lot of people, they say things like, it has to be in plain view, in plain view. Well, the moment you open your door, anything that's in view, that's plain view. When you had your door closed, it's not in plain view, okay? Now, let me give you an example. I had a client that the police had arrested for a DWI. They were driving in their neighborhood. Officer thought that maybe it wasn't a full stop. The officer wasn't really close, and the road had, the road had kind of curved. The biggest problem for the officer, my client lived in that neighborhood. So my client got to their house before the officer was able to put them lights on behind them, right? Now the law is clear. This is not a hot pursuit. If someone can only get a ticket, then the officer has no right to enter the home. Normally, they just send the ticket in the mail. But the officer can knock at the door, so they did. My client opened the door, they had a drink in their hand. This interaction led to an arrest and a charge. Yes, I was able to get the case dismissed, but the point is it led to the arrest, and he had to deal with me, right? Now, here's the most important question you can ask. Officer, are you here with a warrant? That's it, right? If the answer is no, you are allowed to say, I do not consent to any searches, right? You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to justify anything, right? This is not obstruction. This is the law, right? I mean, think about all these people are out there, like stuff that happened at Waco or Rupert Ridge. They're saying, no, you can't come in. Now, don't get me wrong. I think they did end up having a warrant eventually. But a lot of people are mistrustful, and it's okay because it's kind of American, right? So some say it makes you look guilty. Why ask for a warrant if you got nothing to hide? Well, I represented some clients who were arrested from a search only to have the case dismissed once it became clear there wasn't anything illegal. The labs came back negative. Knowing the result, should they have even been arrested? I think you would say no. But what was the problem? The problem was they gave consent, they opened the door, they opened themselves to the whole entire situation because they were innocent and they believed that they were innocent. And I'm going to get to that. Okay. Let's talk about mistake number 2. Talking because you think it will clear things up. Police are trained to gather statements, okay? They'll say things like, we just want to get your side. This is informal. Help me understand. That's a little bit like Jerry Maguire. Help me help you. But what they're not going to say is, when you talk to me, your words are going to be evidence. And this next part is what saves clients thousands of dollars and years of stress. All right. Here's the 4-sentence rule I give to people. Am I being detained? Right? I do not consent to any searches. I choose to remain silent. I want to speak with my attorney. Say these calmly. Say it one time, then stop talking. Silence is not guilt. Silence is protection. As a matter of fact, some case law has shown that officers get so excited about consent or having you talk that they make illegal promises. Officers can lie to you and then say, hey, Carlos said you did it. And then you end up like admitting it, even though you felt like you didn't do it. It's okay for them to say that, right? However, if they promise you something in return, now there is a problem. If they say they want to get some consent with a DWI alcohol result, right? I want the breath, I want the blood, right? Those things get thrown out all the time because officers say they will release the person if they agree, right? If you agree to give me the sample, we're going to release you. But then that's a manipulation now. Now you're not having informed consent. You don't exactly know. You're thinking like, okay, well, I don't want to be in the back of this car. I don't want to be arrested. No. If they're making certain moves, if they're doing certain things like arresting you, they give Miranda rights. If they're trying to get consent, right, they can make bad moves. Now, not all the moves are bad. As I just said, they can lie to you, right? But most of the time, they don't even have to. They're just going to talk to you and you don't know what they're thinking in the back of their head. Okay, let's talk about mistake number 3. And this can be the biggest one. Believing that innocence keeps you safe. Innocent people get charged every single day in America. Not because they committed crimes, but because they over-explained and misspoke, or they were just trying to help. The law protects your rights only if you use them. A great example are parents who are charged with drug possession because their kids have drugs. Or what about that friend that left those drugs in your car? You know, the ones that you didn't know about? Then you let the officer search your car or search your house. You didn't even know it was there. Now you're arrested and that means you're innocent. But will the officer believe you when you say, "But that's not mine"? I would even say, take the hint. Why are they knocking? Why are they there? Did someone do something bad? And now you're catching the strays? People have been shot opening the door because they had a gun in their hand, right? You know the deal. People banging on your door all the time. You know it's like, why are you banging on the door like the police? The reason that people say, why you acting like that, is because police act like that. But also, that saying is pretty normal, right? People just be banging on the door. And you're like, wait a minute, what's up with that? And you're trying to go over there, you open the door, it's the cops. It's not what you were expecting. Okay? There someone's knock. It's known that people can knock at the door in, let's say, not the best of neighborhoods, right? Maybe an apartment complex. I've seen the videos, maybe you've seen them, where people come knocking like crazy and then no one comes in and opens the door, right? Why don't they open the door? It could be the police. Well, maybe because people just be tripping and then they're just banging on the door, whatever. And then the next thing you know, they're trying to kick the door down. Oh my gosh. Then time to get yourself the arm and protect yourself. Except you can't. Or maybe you shouldn't. We know these things, they can be kind of weird, right? Well, that's the reason somebody might go up to the door with a gun in their hand, open the door. Now the officer, who wasn't even expecting someone to have a gun, sees somebody basically armed. Now, maybe that person isn't pointing a gun at the officer, but officer doesn't have time to be worried about that. They're like, oh my gosh. And then they react immediately. And let me tell you something. Officers have like a 3-click system to get a gun out. They can get it out real quick. So that's why people, it's okay. It's okay. Be like, hey, who is there? You don't have to be like, oh, let me just open the door. And maybe we need to get ring cams. We all need to get ring cams just to be safe. I mean, I don't have anything link in the description, but I have one. It's good. So remember this: police do not automatically have the right to enter your home. Consent is how most people lose their protection. And silence plus a lawyer is a strategy, not suspicion. I want to hear from you. Drop your questions in the chat. Right? Put it in the comments. I want to see those. I review this. I kind of do a live pretty much every day, and I start looking around to see people's real situations and try to answer those situations, right? Especially if you're on live, I'm going to try and answer you. Okay. Now, beside that, if law enforcement has contacted you, don't wait. In the description, there's a link. I want you to follow that link and schedule something with me. Okay. We're going to talk it out. You're not going to have anything to worry about. I'm Ruben Restrepo. I appreciate you guys being here for this live. Now, let's get to some questions. Okay, when traveling out of town, I put my gun under my seat, but is it in a holster? Is that okay? The answer is yes. Okay, it's not. If it's underneath the seat, it's kind of not in plain view, so nobody's going to really mess with you at that point. An officer's not going to get suspicious. It's underneath the seat. You got to now. If you get pulled over and you're kind of like rustling like that, that might give them a bit of pause, and they might ask you some questions. So, but if it's just like you're getting the ticket and they start asking you something else, you can be like, am I getting a ticket? They don't need to be like, are you DWI or do you have drugs in your car? Drugs in my car? There's no way you would think I have drugs in my car unless you saw me buying some drugs. So it don't need to go that far. And look, most everybody that's watching, we're not going around buying drugs. So nothing's wrong, right? What we don't want is unnecessary charges just for having a gun. Okay? So yes, it's perfectly fine as long as it's in a holster, right? Now, I don't necessarily like it underneath the seat because it is not easily accessible, right? I mean, there's a reason you have the gun, right? It's like in case somebody's trying to come up on you when you're going to Walmart at night. You want to be you want to be protected. You see somebody coming and they're armed. So, but the answer is yes. That is just fine. All right. What's the next thing? Mm-mm-mm. Okay. Somebody asked, why can't Texas just go to constitutional carry? Well, I think you're misinterpreting. A concealed handgun license allows someone to go certain places with a gun, right? And there's no problem. And no one, no, there's not going to be a problem, right? And as long as it's everything is hunky dory, that's kind of the purpose. Also, it allows people who are underneath a certain age to have it. Basically, it's almost like you're becoming a security guard. So we are pretty much a constitutional carry system, right? Even your constitutional carry system, they're going to have restrictions, right? A lot of places, usually it's cities, giant municipalities like Houston, Austin, Dallas. These places, they need extra things because there's just so many people with handguns and they're trying to deter people from resolving problems with handguns. Okay, let's see. Uh, Some of these are not necessarily questions. All right, so somebody's saying when you pull over, keep both hands on the steering wheel. Okay, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Now, I don't think you necessarily need to do that, right? You can, when the officer's coming up, have your driver's license and proof of insurance ready. Okay, but you can have it right there. There's no problem with that. Let's see. Roll down windows. If an officer is telling you to roll down, you only have to roll down your window, the driver's side. If they're telling you to roll down the other windows, I mean, you can do it, but you know, I would think that would have to be like kind of at night. You know, that's if they're pulling you over because you have an expired tag, they really shouldn't be going overboard and saying, "Oh, roll down all the windows" and stuff like that. But if they're if somebody's being mean to you, if they're being aggressive to you, just follow whatever they say. It may mean that you're most likely just going to get arrested anyways, and so at that point, oh well, right? Get arrested, beat the case. So inform the officer you have a firearm in the vehicle. I don't agree with that. You don't have to volunteer information. Officer hears that, they've already pulled you over. That means you already committed a crime. What other crimes are they going to start thinking that you did? Why are you volunteering information? If you got pulled over, they are suspecting you of a crime. Sometimes a crime is simple traffic violation, but a traffic violation is a crime. They do bring up driving with license invalid, which is a misdemeanor C. They bring it up all the time. Speeding, this person was speeding. This person had reckless driving. They have a history of running red lights. Why did you paid that ticket? You pled guilty when you did that. You just didn't do it formally, and they do bring it up. So don't go thinking that just because it's a traffic ticket, everything is just free. So no, I don't think you should tell them. Now, if you have a CHL, it's a little different. You have different rules, so follow those rules. But everybody else, get your ticket and go home. Okay? You don't have to say anything. I have a gun. There's a gun in the car. What if you don't know if there's a gun in the car? How do they know the difference between you knowing there's a gun in the car and there's a gun in the car? No one thinks, oh my gosh, he didn't tell me that there was a gun in the car. Therefore, I'm going to charge him with an extra charge of gun in the car without telling the officer. There is no such charge. That's it. What you don't want to do, officer tells you to get out of the car, have that gun on your person. Now that's going to scare them. Unless, of course, you're like a security guard or a police officer, right? Maybe a trooper and you're getting pulled over by a police officer. And it's just a part of what you wear. I mean, police officers don't put their belt on every time. So I don't agree with that. That gets people into trouble more than you would think. Okay. Da, da, da. Some different comments. This person's saying that nobody should open carry because then everybody knows you have a gun. Well, I mean, I think that's kind of the purpose, right? Also, don't forget that, I mean, sometimes we do have crazy people out there, right? I mean, what are you supposed to do? Like, I guess you're trying to say conceal carry, right? But remember, if you have something over it, then you have to try and get to it. So that's why they're saying just put it in a holster. So, I mean, to each his own. You know what? I'm not entirely sure. I know you can't enter school property. The question is basically they're driving to the school to pick up their daughter. The gun's in a holster in a glove compartment. I think you would be just fine, right? You don't want to definitely wave it around, and you don't want to enter the school grounds with it. But could the officer arrest you and charge you, or the DA charge you? I think they would definitely meet the minimum criteria. It's just that if unless you're doing something else, I just don't see that they would, right? Because generally speaking, the way guns get involved in everything is when one either somebody saw the gun or there was something else going on, right? A traffic violation that ended up they wanted to search the car because they suspected you for something else, and they're like, "Darn, we didn't get them for that, but we're going to get them for the wrong way of having a gun." Right? The gun was when I say the gun is in the back seat, don't do that. That's because people do that. I understand a lot of people read this stuff and they watch this stuff and they're like, that's crazy. Why would anybody ever do that? Because people just aren't thinking about it, right? At a certain point, the gun is just something you own, right? It's like hair comb, right? You might throw your hair comb in the back seat. It doesn't matter. You're going to use it only when you need it, and you're just not thinking about it, and it just ends up going there. So it happens a lot. I understand. Uh, do you need to put it in a holster when it's inside your gun range bag? Um, I think it's in the bag. I'm trying to remember. I know some people have gotten arrested and the gun was in a school bag and it wasn't in a holster. But generally, I think the people that I represented were under the age of 21. So it was kind of like they went from that level. Um, I mean, if you have a holster, just have it in a holster. That's, safer than sorry. That's always the better thing. Let's see. Oh, yeah, I guess that's kind of a thing. So the question is, what if I have my gun in the glove box, but I reach in the glove box to get my proof of insurance? So you are kind of putting yourself out there, right? Because sometimes people often think of a police officer coming on the driver's side, right? Like, hey, officer, how you doing? However, a lot of officers come from the passenger side, and then if you have to go there, they're going to see that gun. Now, at that point, you do want to say something. Now, officer, I have my stuff, I have my insurance information in the glove compartment. I do have a legal firearm there, right? Now, the question is, can once you do that and they see it, can they arrest you? Yes, if it's not in a holster, because the moment you do that, now they can see it. Are there defenses? Yes, right? It's just that I feel like a lot of times when people are kind of arguing these points, they feel like, well, this is how the law should be. But that does the question is, can the police arrest you? Have people been arrested that way? So we're talking about we're trying to avoid the arrest in the first place. But Ruben, that means you're not gonna have clients. Trust me, there's plenty of people who haven't seen my videos who are gonna do this. Even if you see the videos, sometimes people are like, "Oh, Ruben was right." Darn. So, oh, okay, yeah. So someone got arrested for possession of marijuana. They confiscated the pistol. But before they even got to the courts, they dismissed the case, right? Remember, I told you some places are so small, they can take months before you get to the court. And so they might look at it and they're like, man, we're not about to test this marijuana. We don't need this headache, right? Because you need a special machine. They may say there's not enough. And one of the problems is hemp actually burns at the same THC level as illegal illegal marijuana. Marijuana is delta 9, hemp can be delta 8. The problem is when you burn hemp, it becomes delta 9. Now it doesn't affect you THC wise the same way, right? And so like your THC level might not be at the level it would be if you smoked hemp versus smoking true marijuana. So that's why a lot of times those cases don't go through. Yes, the case gets dismissed. They don't need it for evidence anymore. So now you can get the gun back. Now, sometimes what you have to do is you have to file something with the court to reclaim your gun. You could definitely hire a lawyer to do that. There's no problem with that. Okay. So thank you so much for watching. I'm going to end the stream. Remember to subscribe.